The sun bathed the bustling streets of Charlotte, North Carolina in a golden light. The downtown clock read 1:15 p.m., and restaurants were swarming with hurried customers looking for a quick meal before heading back to work. Among them, a man entered a small traditional restaurant nestled in a quiet corner, the Maple Diner. It was a no-frills establishment, beloved by the locals for its warm atmosphere and homemade dishes. The man in question, Mark Moreau, was a 57-year-old African-American with a penetrating gaze and a confident stride. Dressed in a worn leather jacket, sturdy boots, and a military cap, he carried the mark of a past shaped by the Army. Every step he took betrayed a discipline acquired over the years. As soon as he entered, a bell rang above the door, catching the attention of Lena Whitman, a blonde waitress in her 30s. Her gaze lingered on him for a moment, before hardening imperceptibly. Mark settled into a table by the window, crossing his arms and observing the restaurant. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling bacon floated in the air. A simple, modest place. A place where he hoped to just eat quietly. But something was off. Minutes passed, and no one came to see him. Lena walked back and forth past his table without a glance, without a word. Yet she served other customers with a smile. Mark eventually raised his hand, trying to get her attention. "Excuse me, ma'am." She stopped abruptly and turned her head toward him. Her expression was cold, almost disdainful. "Yes?" she snapped tersely. Mark kept his calm and smiled slightly. "I'll have a coffee and a turkey sandwich, please." Lena crossed her arms. "Payment in advance." Mark blinked, surprised. "Pardon?" She leaned slightly forward, lowering her voice. "You need to pay first. We can't take any risks." An awkward silence fell over the neighboring tables. Some customers stole furtive glances at the scene, while others quickly looked away. Mark took a deep breath. He had experienced this kind of situation before. He knew what it meant. "Has the restaurant changed its policy?" he asked calmly. "Because I haven't seen anyone else pay before being served." Lena shrugged. "We apply this rule when it's necessary." Mark stared at her for a moment, then took out his wallet and placed some bills on the table. "Fine, but I want a receipt." Lena took the money without responding and disappeared toward the cash register. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Still nothing. Mark looked around him. Conversations continued, but a tension hung in the air. He got up and calmly walked to the counter. Lena was facing away, laughing with a colleague as if she had completely forgotten about his existence. "Excuse me, my order should have been ready by now." She turned around, looking annoyed. "Ah, yes. Kitchen problem. It'll take a while." Mark crossed his arms. "In that case, I'd prefer to get my money back." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Sorry, but advance payments are non-refundable." Mark's blood boiled for a moment. He had endured a lot, but this... "So, you refuse to serve me and keep my money?" Lena stepped forward and gave a mocking smile. "If you're not happy, you can leave." Mark opened his mouth to reply, but before he could say anything, she grabbed the phone and dialed a number. "Yes, this is the Maple Diner. There's a man causing trouble. He's threatening me." Mark's eyes widened. She was lying. Some customers exchanged awkward glances. An elderly lady near the cash register stared at the scene, shocked. Mark closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He knew where this was headed. "A patrol is on the way, ma'am," he heard on the other end of the line. Lena hung up and crossed her arms, satisfied. "Let's see how you handle this." Mark returned to his seat, laying his hands flat on the table. He didn't move. A few minutes later, 2 police officers suddenly entered the restaurant. One of them, a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair, immediately scrutinized Mark with a suspicious gaze. His badge read, Sergeant Mitchell Carter. Beside him, a younger officer seemed to be waiting for orders. Lena, still behind the counter, struck a dramatic pose and pointed at Mark. "Officer, thank God you're here. This man is aggressive. He refuses to leave." Carter squinted and fixed his gaze on Mark. Stand up slowly and show your hands. Mark complied without protesting. It's a misunderstanding, officer, he said calmly. I paid for my order, but they refused to serve me. And when I asked for a refund, they called the police. Carter didn't seem convinced. Do you have an ID? In my jacket. If you allow me, I'll take it out slowly. Carter nodded. Mark pulled out his wallet and handed it to him. The sergeant opened it, examined the document, and suddenly his expression changed. His eyes widened. He looked at Mark, then at his badge, then back at Mark. The young officer glanced over his shoulder and frowned. Sergeant, do you see what I see? Carter swallowed hard. Mark Moreau, decorated Army veteran. Medal of Honor for service in Afghanistan. The silence became icy. Lena instantly lost all her color. Her arrogance vanished in the blink of an eye. Mark crossed his arms. So, Sergeant, what are you going to do now?